You see how young these women are. You know, like this woman, Rachel Zegler, she looks about 12 years old in that clip, who plays the new Snow White. And it really does seem to me that this is like a 19-year-old's version of feminism, right? You've got to reject men. They have to be painted as toxically masculine.
$250 million down the drain, a beloved fairy tale turned into a box office nightmare, and a rising star left to face the backlash alone. Disney's Snow White remake didn't just underperform, it became one of the most humiliating flops in recent Hollywood history, leaving Rachel Zegler's career hanging by a thread. The film was supposed to be a triumphant reinvention, a feminist twist on a classic that would cement Zegler as Disney's next big leading lady. But instead, it crashed and burned so spectacularly that it vanished from public consciousness almost overnight. The numbers were brutal. A paltry $3.5 million in previews.
What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Disastrous streaming metrics where most viewers didn't even finish the movie, and a critical reception so toxic that even Disney, a studio known for doubling down on its mistakes, quietly erased all traces of the film from its marketing and merchandise. But the real story isn't just about a bad movie. It's about how Hollywood builds up young stars only to abandon them at the first sign of trouble, how social media can turn public perception against an actress in an instant, and how the fallout from one disastrous project can derail a career before it even really begins. Rachel Zegler went from golden girl to industry pariah in record time, and the details of her downfall revealed just how ruthless show business can be when a gamble doesn't pay off.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
When Rachel Zegler was cast as Snow White, it was framed as a groundbreaking moment. A Latina lead taking on one of Disney's most iconic roles, a fresh take on a classic story that would resonate with modern audiences. The studio poured an estimated $250 million into production, reshoots, and marketing, positioning it as a must-see blockbuster with TikTok campaigns, influencer deals, and relentless promotional tours. Zegler herself became the face of the film, giving interviews where she framed the remake as a necessary evolution, dismissing the 1937 original as weird, and calling the prince a stalker, comments that would later come back to haunt her.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole. So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump. So I attacked her, and then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like I went too far, but it wasn't sincere.
But behind the scenes, the project was in chaos from the start. Test screenings were disastrous, with audiences confused by the film's tone. Was it a feminist manifesto, a political allegory, a straight fairy tale? And executives panicked, ordering endless rewrites and reshoots that only made the film feel more disjointed. By the time it limped into theaters, the buzz had turned toxic, and what was supposed to be Zegler's coronation as a new Disney princess instead became a cautionary tale about the dangers of overconfidence in an industry where audience goodwill can vanish overnight. The making of Snow White was less a smooth production and more a slow-motion train wreck, with insiders later describing it as a Frankenstein's monster of conflicting visions and last-minute panic.
So obviously, Disney employs thousands and thousands of actors and actresses, and I'm sure that, most of them, if not all, have made statements in the last week lamenting on social media about Donald Trump, about the election. But there was one actress who stood out, Rachel Zegler. Weird. But you just have to hear what she posted on her Instagram story. I find myself speechless in the midst of this.
The script went through endless revisions, with entire scenes being reshot multiple times. One version leaned hard into political messaging. Another tried to course-correct by adding more traditional fairy tale elements, but none of them worked. The film's famous poisoned apple scene was reportedly redesigned 4 different times after toy companies complained it wasn't marketable enough, while the soundtrack went through multiple composers, leaving the score feeling patchwork and uninspired. Test audiences were baffled, with one source claiming executives were in full panic mode after early screenings where viewers called the film boring and preachy. Even Disney's legendary marketing machine couldn't paper over the cracks.
Every time that a celebrity gets like one DM that says KYS, they're like, I'm getting death threats! Someone save me, but not a prince! Don't.
Anybody but a prince.
Don't you dare save me.
She's like, I'm getting these death threats, and the cops were like, well, save yourself.
By the time the film finally debuted, it was clear that nobody, not even the studio, really knew what they were trying to make. The result was a movie with no identity, no emotional core, and worst of all, no magic. The one thing a Disney fairy tale absolutely cannot afford to lack. When Snow White hit Disney Plus after its underwhelming theatrical run, the studio hoped streaming would give it a second life. But what happened next was even more damning than the box office failure. The film shot to #1 in multiple regions within days, but the metrics revealed a brutal truth.
Rachel Zegler is finally speaking out on the Snow White backlash and just explained how she got through all the hate. With Disney's live-action Snow White fully in the rearview, Rachel Zegler is moving on to bigger and better things, but she recently opened up to ID magazine about the whole Disney ordeal. Quote, "My psychiatrist has seen me through all of it."
People weren't watching because they loved it, they were watching out of morbid curiosity. Nielsen reported 581 million minutes streamed in the first week, but deeper data showed most viewers dropped off halfway through, with almost no one rewatching or adding it to their favorites. It was a classic hate watch phenomenon, audiences tuning in just to see how bad it really was, then leaving disappointed when it somehow managed to be worse than expected. Critics tore into the film, calling it soulless and like being lectured by a bedtime story, while fans complained that it lacked the warmth and wonder of Disney's best work.
Snow White star Rachel Zegler is entering the chat, telling Allure she struggles to meet supportive women in Hollywood. Quote, "All I'm ever really looking for in this business is a sister, and they're not always easy to find."
Within 2 weeks, Snow White had plummeted out of the top 10 entirely, buried by the algorithm as quickly as it had risen. For Disney, the message was clear. This wasn't just a misfire, it was a full-blown rejection from the very audience they'd spent years cultivating, and the fallout would extend far beyond just one bad movie. As the film bombed, the internet turned its fury on Rachel Zegler, dredging up old interviews where she'd criticized the original Snow White and framing her as the poster child for everything wrong with modern Hollywood.
Rachel Zegler, thanks for coming on my show. I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. So you recently starred in the movie Snow White. Tell me, what was it like to play Snow Latina?
First of all, Steven, it was weird. But I did enjoy reimagining the character as a woke Colombian woman who looks like a fish.
Well, I sold out years ago and I'm a coward.
Clips of her calling the 1937 film weird and mocking the prince's storyline went viral, with hashtags like #WokeWhite trending for days as fans accused her of disrespecting the source material. Memes painted her as arrogant and out of touch, while opinion pieces asked whether her Gen Z sarcasm had doomed the movie before it even released. The backlash was relentless, with even minor press moments, like her saying Snow White wouldn't dream of love, but instead of being a leader, being twisted into evidence that she hated the character. What might have been framed as a bold reimagining in a different climate instead came across as disdain for the original, alienating the nostalgic fans Disney needed to win over. Zegler, who'd been positioned as the film's charismatic lead, suddenly found herself shouldering the blame for its failure. Her every past comment weaponized against her in a way that few young stars recover from unscathed. The pressure of the backlash took a visible toll on Zegler, who broke down in a tearful interview where she admitted to feeling isolated and lonely, revealing she'd started therapy and anxiety medication to cope with the fallout. It was a raw, vulnerable moment that might have drawn sympathy in a less toxic environment, but the internet, already primed to see her as the villain, twisted it into further ammunition. The clip went viral within hours, chopped up into reaction videos and memes where commentators mocked her dramatics or accused her of playing the victim. A few voices defended her, pointing out the disproportionate hate she was receiving, but they were drowned out by the louder, angrier crowd. Zegler later admitted in a since-deleted social media post that she was spiraling, a rare moment of honesty from a young actress clearly unprepared for the brutality of online pylons. But Hollywood isn't known for its patience, and as the controversy showed no signs of dying down, the industry's silence became deafening, leaving Zegler to navigate the storm alone while her professional future grew increasingly uncertain.
Every time she speaks, she gets less likable. There's some clip of her on the internet in her Snow White outfit saying, "Every hour I am in the outfit of Snow White wearing the dress. All 18 hours, I deserve to be paid for every single one."
In the past, when a Disney film underperformed, the studio would at least try to salvage it, pushing soundtrack singles, hyping theme park tie-ins, or quietly re-editing it for future releases. But with Snow White, they did the opposite. They erased it, Merchandise was pulled from shelves, Disneyland removed Snow White's dress from its princess lineup, and CEO Bob Iger's only public comment was a vague statement about entertainment over agenda that felt like a quiet disowning of the project. There were no extended ad campaigns, no attempts to reframe the narrative, just radio silence, as if hoping everyone would forget the movie ever existed. For Zegler, the implications were dire. She'd been the face of the film's promotional blitz, but now that the film was toxic, Disney seemed content to let her take the fall alone. The message to Hollywood was clear. She wasn't just attached to a flop, she was seen as part of the reason it flopped, a perception that's notoriously hard to shake in an industry where reputation is everything. Months after the Snow White disaster, Zegler's career is in limbo. No new roles announced, no high-profile projects in the pipeline, just rumors that studios are wary of casting her lest they invite further backlash. It's a pattern Hollywood has seen before. Stars like Katherine Heigl, Shia LaBeouf, or Gina Carano, who went from in-demand to untouchable after controversies made them seem like difficult investments. Zegler hasn't been officially blacklisted, but the industry's silence speaks volumes. No one wants to be the first to take a chance on her until the dust settles. Whether she can stage a comeback depends on whether she can distance herself from the Snow White stigma, perhaps with a gritty indie role or a voice acting gig that lets her rebuild her reputation quietly. But the clock is ticking. In Hollywood, momentum is everything. And the longer she goes without a win, the harder it'll be to convince the industry she's worth the risk. For now, she's a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly the machine can spit you out when the narrative turns against you. Behind closed doors, Hollywood's response to the Snow White fallout has been a mix of schadenfreude and nervous recalibration. Executives who once greenlit woke reboots without a second thought are now second-guessing how far they can push legacy IP, while rival studios are quietly shelving similar projects to avoid the same fate.
Oh, really? Are you having trouble paying your bills, Rachel? Did Steven Spielberg not pay you for your role in West Side Story? Did Disney fail to give you a healthy paycheck for, cry me a river? She's just exactly everything that we can't stand.
The film's failure has become a rallying cry for critics of message-first storytelling, with pundits arguing it proves audiences just want escapism, not lectures. But the truth is more complicated. Other progressive reboots, The Little Mermaid and Kanto, succeeded because they balanced modernity with warmth, while Snow White alienated viewers by feeling cynical and disjointed. The lesson isn't that woke films can't work, it's that they have to actually be good, something Disney forgot in its rush to check diversity boxes without nailing the storytelling. For Zegler, the industry's takeaway is less about ideology and more about risk assessment. Right or wrong, she's now associated with a very public failure, and in a town that hates losers, that's a hard label to shake. So where does Rachel Zegler go from here? History suggests the odds are against her. Hollywood rarely gives second chances to young stars who become synonymous with disaster, especially when the internet has already decided they're the problem. But if there's a glimmer of hope, it's that the industry loves a redemption arc, and Zegler's undeniable talent, her West Side Story Oscar win wasn't a fluke, means someone might eventually take a gamble on her again. The question is whether she can survive the wilderness long enough for that to happen, or if Snow White will forever define her as a cautionary tale about the perils of fame in the social media age. One thing's certain, her story isn't just about a bad movie. It's about how quickly the system discards you when you stop being useful, and how hard it is to claw your way back once you've been left behind. Was this fair? Was it inevitable? Or did Disney set her up to fail? Drop your thoughts below, because in Hollywood, the court of public opinion is just as ruthless as the studios themselves.